Maddox, Hear Me Out, and my co-host, Yaz.
Hi, everybody.
Yes, no longer just the guest speaker. She's officially the co-host, so get used to seeing her. Before we get started on our Hear Me Out session, which is going to be Age is Just a Number, just our take on our own personal experiences. This will be part one. Before we get into it, though, we're going to tell you some of our upcoming events because we both do things in the local community.
Okay, so this month in February, I have an all-women's cigar club. We're called Fierce Fumeras, FIERCEFUMERAS. You can find us on Instagram or Facebook. We meet the second Wednesday of every month at 7 p.m. at Executive Cigar Shop and Lounge, located in historic downtown Melbourne, Florida. So this month, our guest speaker is a dynamic individual. His name is Peter Lopez, and he's with Publify Press. He will be teaching us how to write a book, and you'd be surprised you could write a book too. So that will be February 8th, Wednesday night at 7 o'clock at Executive Cigar Shop in downtown Melbourne, Florida. You can also find me there on Tuesday and Friday nights for the rest of the month of February.
Excellent. And for me, it's every single Wednesday at the Twisted Rooster from 8 till 12-ish, depending on the evening and how many singers we have. That's karaoke, and that'll be every single Wednesday moving forward. And the third Wednesday of the month, we are doing kinky trivia there as well at the Twisted Rooster, also located in Melbourne, not too far from the Executive. It's probably 3 or 4 miles.
Right.
And then I have an intimacy workshop coming up in March 17th and 18th. There's one that evening, and then there will be another one that morning on the 19th, 11 to 2 p.m. And then I have a spiritual retreat. It'll be at Wickham Park in the camping center area, the 28th through the 30th. That's something that if you really just want to get closer to yourself and meet like-minded people, it will be an entire weekend in a camping situation. We're going to have a drum circle, hypnosis, tarot reading. It's going to be a really cool experience, and of course I'll be there.
And it's my birthday weekend.
And her birthday, so you have to go. Well, let's get into it. Today, we're going to talk about age is just a number. And like I said, this is just our own personal experiences as our journeys.
Dating through the ages and dating people outside of our age group, either higher or lower.
Yeah, excellent. Different misconceptions. Some of us stay within our age group when we're dating. And,
some of us don't.
And some of us don't and can't, I think, I think when I was in my early 20s, I was, available to people closer to my age group, but that was also more because my parents had a lot more control over who I dated.
Right.
But I always was more drawn to older people, and I think part of that was because we were talking about this. I wasn't really mature, but intellectually I was a little bit more advanced.
Right.
And I didn't really have a whole lot in common with guys that were my age.
Yeah, definitely. When I was in my 20s, I was married, and my ex-husband is 17 years older than I am.
Mm-hmm.
So I can relate to that. So in terms of being married and creating a family atmosphere and kind of where you're at as a woman at that point in time, I was a lot more less loose. So I think I've loosened up over the years. I was a lot more structured.
Uptight,
Yeah, I was definitely more uptight, but I was managing. We had a very large household, lots of kids and blended family and temporary children and things like that. So there were a lot of moving parts at any point in time, a lot of family members, extended family members around. So it had to be. They used to call me the general. I think some of them still do. They called me the general because you had to kind of keep everything in line and people in tow. And then once I got divorced, I kind of switched it up, lightened up a little bit, and started dating way younger than myself.
Yeah.
And that was just because I was a lot more lighthearted and liked to have a little bit more fun, and I didn't like anybody telling me what to do.
So it's funny you say, like, in my situation, I think for me also, my parents are there's a big age difference. Mm-hmm. And interestingly enough, my mom is one of 7 women, and my dad got an older sister, a brother underneath him and then a younger sister, but bigger families, and they came from the same town. And it's weird because they all kind of knew each other, but at the same time that like I saw the age differences. Like my mom had, you know, siblings that were way younger
Right.
and then older, and I think that that kind of created her idea of like being attached to older people as well,
Right.
because she had to play the dynamic as somebody who was older,
Uh-huh.
being in the I think she's the third down.
Mm-hmm.
So now you're like also more mature.
Yeah.
And so dating,
You're kind of sister mom.
yeah.
Which
So
I can relate to that dynamic.
and I think in some of the experiences that they both had based on the time period, they had a lot of responsibility. So
Mhm.
that age difference didn't make a huge difference. And I do think it makes somewhat of a difference depending on what your situation is too.
Right.
So,
well, in my case, both my parents married quite significantly their junior. So my mother, almost like a 20-year gap. So where I married older, my mother married my stepfather is younger. My stepfather's actually a year younger than my ex-husband, which was always very interesting as far as my kids were concerned. How's my grandpa younger than my dad? I was like, ask your grandma. Shout out to my mom, who is one of the original cougars, because before cougaring was a thing, that existed, and it was very awkward as a kid growing up. And as I got older, then obviously I kind of did something similar. I get it now. Didn't get it back then. Didn't get it as a little kid, kind of growing up in the 80s. But they are true soulmates, those two, my mom and my stepdad. So they kind of complement each other. They're polar opposites, but they are definitely the most unified front I've ever met.
oh yeah, for sure. And even in my parents' situation, my mom was the younger one, my dad was older.
Mm-hmm.
My mom was for sure the more, she's not, I want to be like,
The pants?
yes, she is 1000 the pants, and my dad would really only step in if like things started to get out of control.
Right.
He'd be like, whoa, and it could go one way or the other. Sometimes it was because he felt like my mom was being a little too intense, and then it could be because we were disrespecting. It could go one or he was just the one who kind of stepped in to help control the situation. But most of the time, my mom was making sure that whether it was getting ready for school or school activities, she was the one who knew all those things.
Right.
And yeah, she was the disciplinarian for sure as well. But my parents had a very unified front. I always tell people I never saw them argue. It's not to say it didn't happen.
Yeah, mine either.
They were just respectful enough not to involve us. But I will say this too. So opposite of you, I always kind of dated like based on what I was allowed to do. And then when I moved to Florida by myself, I was pretty vulnerable in the sense that even though I was mature beyond my years for how I could articulate things, I was really immature in a lot of ways. And unfortunately, that also helps make you a little vulnerable.
Right.
Because people perceive you in a certain way, like, oh, she can handle herself and things, but I really didn't have, I grew up on a dead-end street. I didn't have a lot of out of the world experience. And my first year in Florida, I tell this, I say it all the time, I was in the Walt Disney College program, and I was invited into many situations that sometimes I had to kind of like go along with things just to get out of it.
Something. Yeah.
And then I met my son's father, and I was freshly 20, maybe turning 21, and he was already 30. And I always say that I tell younger girls now, where are you really in your life? Because for me, those early 20s, when I was really trying to figure myself out, he was very controlling.
Right.
And tried to control what I was doing, and he would tell me certain people weren't my friends, and would follow me to work, things like that, and got very it was very unhealthy. And also I didn't really get to figure myself out when I should have been figuring myself out. So
to kind of alienate you from the rest of the world.
There was a point too.
So you kind of went from the family dynamic of being stifled to
And
the
then there was a
relationship
point
dynamic
where
of being stifled.
he would at one point had convinced me that nobody in my family wanted to hear from me. So there was a point where I literally was isolated to this one person, and it was when you're 20 and fresh out of high school. I had kind of gone in this, like, I didn't know what I was doing. I tried college, didn't like it, was doing all these different things, and I was really kind of lost. Instead of, it could work in the sense that the person is guiding you and, you know, leading you to your direction, or it can throw you completely off path, which is what I feel happened. And then I went and I developed all these similar kind of relationships afterwards. So it took me, I didn't really start discovering myself until
coming
like
into your own until
30s,
right?
Like late 30s,
right?
And that had a lot to do with, you know, I think when he was so much older and he knew my situation, that vulnerability gave him access to being able to control the situation. And it was like, oh, well, you can't do this because I've already lived it and I can tell you how it's going to end. And the truth is, even if you take two people,
they're completely different.
Yeah, different
scenarios.
experiences.
Yeah.
So I always say that you have to be careful.
That happens a lot, though.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the wolf.
Well, and that's what
kind of like the wolf.
And I tell people, look, and we have a great relationship now, but it's because my son is the most important thing in my life. So co-parenting became important to me, and regardless of what my feelings were prior to, when my son got into the picture, it was like he needs both parents regardless of the setting. But I will tell you, I actually was with him for almost 4 years, and I did not get pregnant at any point. It was when I wanted to leave.
Okay. Right.
That I found out I was pregnant.
Yeah.
And that was, you know, women do it, and so do men.
Right.
They try and like trap you. And honestly, it was the thing that made me realize the most that I was like, this is
not working.
This is not a healthy situation, nor something I wanted for him. But it can go both ways. And then now that I'm older, and, you know, I find myself, I do have experiences where I dated people maybe 5 years younger. And even then, I felt like, I sort of felt like, because my natural role is to be very nurturing, if they're not where I am on a mature level, it's really hard not to fall into feeling like you're being their mom.
Oh, yeah. Well,
and doing everything and making all the decisions.
You know, by nature, I'm pretty nurturing and mom-like, and I'm kind of bossy. So you just kind of fall into these natural roles. However, I'm not the biggest control freak. I don't want someone to do what I want them to do just because I want them to do it. I usually see where something is headed, or, you know, or stay out of it. I stay out of it. And I don't offer opinions if you don't ask me. If you don't ask me, you don't have me meddling. But if you do ask me, be prepared.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. But I feel like in the situations that I dated, you know, 5 years younger, or even it all has to do with the person's maturity level. Honestly, you can be a very intellectually mature person and still be very immature.
Right.
And
that happens a lot. Or you could be chronologically old and still be a child.
Yeah.
I mean, I know a lot of 62-year-old children, and I know several 29-year-old mature people. And even myself, I acted more maturely when I was younger, and I definitely act more childlike these days.
I think too, like when I look back at my life, I was mistaken as mature, and I felt like I maybe put that on as like a persona to protect myself at times. Like it was somewhat of like a shield. If they think I'm older, they'll treat me older, kind of thing. But also, like I said, avoiding getting into, it's like these dynamics where you want to make sure that you're still able to function and be your own person.
Exactly. And where you're not completely absorbed in someone else's paradigm.
And helping them become a, you know, more mature person, and losing yourself along the way. Because I see that in age gaps a lot.
Right.
Is where, you know, if I'm in a relationship, even so, here I am 40 and I'm dating somebody who is a little bit older by 20 years, right? So then that's nice, but I don't want a person who's trying to control my actions.
Who's trying
tell
to
me,
form something.
no, I'm here to develop myself and you are to develop yourself. And I like the word, one thing he always said, like when we first started dating, he's like, I'm not changing for anybody. I am who I am. And I'm like, that's perfect. You know, you don't want to be with somebody who's trying to
turn you into something else.
Or needs not just change you, but you don't want to feel like they're changing for you either to make you happy.
Exactly, because that's just disingenuous. For me, it's all about the balance. So it's like, nobody's ever really 50-50. You know,
no.
Somebody's always 30 and someone's 70, or maybe somebody's 60 and someone's 40, and you kind of volley back and forth. But as long as you have an even 100, then you're okay. And as long as you're working for the bigger picture and the greater good, or the collective, so to speak, versus mine over yours. Now, there are times where what you're doing, or you're growing your business, and that takes precedence, or you have a family and the kids are more important or more needy during that time.
Absolutely.
Or someone's sick and needs to be taken care of. There's so many different things that happen in the course of a lifetime where things just aren't always even. At the end of the day, you have to, which is one of the things that my parents do have with their wide age gap, is that they always have the friendship. Their core friendship is at the center, is the crux of their whole relationship. Even now, my mom's retired and he's not, and they talk 10 times a day while he goes to work, on the drive, on the way home, during the lunch break. It's very cute, but it's a little gross still too. You know, it's a little too cheesy.
And I think that, you know, when I think about what I want out of a relationship, and something that had always kind of been lacking was what you just said, is like balance and partnership. I don't necessarily need somebody to be up my ass every day, but like having somebody that you can ask for support when you, or, you know, if I'm struggling with ideas or something, I love that I can bounce ideas off of
someone, exactly.
That person, and they're giving me solutions, or even just listening to me babble about whatever it is. For me, a lot of times just talking is processing.
Exactly.
And so whether they're there and they're just listening, and that is a support in itself.
Right.
And
while also making you comfortable enough that you can go to them.
And I was just going to say that
I'm not the biggest emoter. You know, I tend to be a low emoter. That's just how I am. And I don't have to talk everything through. But I also am not believing that I have the option. People can talk to me about anything.
Yep.
Anyone in my life can talk to me about anything. I just don't always feel that it's reciprocal. And that's partly because of patterns and history and life.
Yeah.
And then also when you're in that role where you're everybody's mom, who's your mom?
No, so, and that's the interesting is like I said, almost all of my relationships started to kind of like mirror it didn't matter what the dynamic was. It was just that it felt very one-sided. And a lot of the times it was like I kind of would lose sight of myself, because my focus then became on trying to make them happy, make sure that they were getting the support that they needed. And, you know, along the way, you're like, all of a sudden, oh shit, like I'm actually ignoring my own, my own wants and needs. And then that turns into, obviously, it becomes toxic.
Or when you have to fight for your stuff. I mean, I remember when some of the things, I remember being told that I volunteered too much. Like I'm like, that's a problem? You know, now what he meant to say was like, you're always doing stuff that doesn't involve me. So it feels like you just don't want to be around me. Well, that's not what was said. What was said was you volunteer too much, which is a big deal of mine, because I like to volunteer.
Well, and I think too, we are similar in the sense that I really feel called to helping people.
Absolutely.
And, you know, when you help people, you are called into other situations, but it's also because I don't feel like we're not making an impact if we're just focused on ourselves, you know?
Not at all. And I mean, but not everybody's, I don't feel like everyone has that same calling.
Yeah,
so
I get it.
I don't generally partner up with someone that has that same calling, or haven't so far.
Yeah.
So there's not that expectation. I think sometimes that in itself makes people feel bad. So sometimes unintentionally people feel bad because you do a lot. You're doing the most, or you know, you're there for, but it's not a comparison. You do other stuff. You do your stuff.
And
there's a role for all of us in this world.
Oh yeah.
In this life.
And in my past, so like even with my son's father, is a good example. We met in the entertainment. industry. He's still entertaining. I still entertain. And I will say, not for me, but for him. And the same thing, what you're talking about. Some people don't want to share the spotlight.
Right.
Or what ends up happening, like the same things that when I would date people who were even younger or just more and more immature, at first they're like, oh, this is like the thing I love about you, and I love that you're out there and you have people are drawn to you and all of that. But then over time,
that's the same thing that they don't like.
They don't like it because now you're not giving them enough attention. And especially in my situation now, one of the things I do appreciate is this person isn't always at all of my events, and they don't need to be there and in my space and controlling and watching everything and everyone I'm talking to. But when they are there, they're also the same way.
Right.
Letting me be me and allowing me to still do the things that make me me.
Which is pretty mature.
It's
because
amazing.
A lot of times, like in my case, people get caught up in the, oh, this is so much fun. You know everybody, da da da. And then, then later on it turns into...
And I think that has to do with how secure you are within yourself.
Absolutely.
Because just because, you're hanging around, you and I both have, there's plenty of men and women. And believe me, it's both. It doesn't matter, man or woman. I get hit on by both.
Yep.
But you have to trust that the other person is
holding up whatever the end of your agreement is.
Yeah, whatever your boundaries or whatever your relationship has established for your relationship, that's what that person is doing.
Yeah.
So I personally think that age is something, if you're not in a great spot in your 20s, do I think you should be dating somebody in their 30s? No, not 40s, not 60s, because the last thing you want to do is lose yourself completely, because it's really easy for somebody who does have an identity within themselves to take somebody that they view as vulnerable and start molding them and like isolating.
Undoubtedly.
Yeah.
I mean, women do it too.
Oh, men and women.
The grooming portion of it, I mean, I wasn't dating 20-something-year-olds just so that we could build a future. It was a lot of fun. And, I wanted them to do what I wanted them to do.
Yeah.
So...
well, and that's the thing.
And then you outgrow it.
What is the motive behind? And when I look at certain situations that I've been in, absolutely, I do feel like people had motives.
Right.
And I look back.
Sometimes they're very clear, and other times
and
they're little hidden. And sometimes they don't even know it. Because I've seen people develop in relationships. I've seen people's personalities, even friends of mine, completely change, where they were really nice, and then there's something that brought out the little whiny girl in and a best guy friend. I'm like, who the heck are you?
Although there are times where
I've seen people go crazy. I've seen people literally lose their minds in relationships.
Why I was smart enough not to marry my son's father, I did marry after that, and he was 7 years older, and again, older but not mature.
Right.
But again, based on where I was in my life and my own histories and stuff, I do feel like after getting to know him, I was part of his pattern.
Okay.
Like, I looked at the women that he dated,
okay.
And it was, he needed women who could see the potential in him, but because, sorry, I'm going to put you out there, I don't care, he was an addict.
Yeah.
And sold himself as a recovered addict, but over time, especially someone like myself, I really didn't do drugs.
Right.
So I didn't necessarily always know what I was looking at. At points I was like, is this person, emotionally
It's kind of hard to identify. I've had that same issue with people and people that are addicts. Like, I can't even tell necessarily what you're doing.
Yeah, especially if
can't tell what you're doing.
Good at it and you've been doing it for a while.
It might be a mood disorder. You might have had a bad day. You might be hungry.
So what I saw in his pattern, and this is somebody who was older.
Quite interesting.
Yeah, well, so he would pick people around my age group, and they were usually women that had their own issues. They had issues or were, similar backstory, we'll say, okay? So then they start blaming themselves.
Right.
And a lot of the women that he dated actually fell into addiction with him.
Yikes.
Yes. And so people that were, you know,
Yikes.
never did drugs before, it's now I'm going to invite you to do this with me. And those are the similar, you know, things that were happening. It's not so
I'm
bad.
trying to psychologically unpack that one.
Yeah, so I came into the relationship never having done any drugs. I left the relationship having done drugs.
Right.
However, I will say that I'm not an addictive personality, so luckily for me, I didn't see it the way he did. I didn't see it as like a 9-day bender. I'm like, oh, this could be fun for one night kind of thing. But then I recognized over time exactly what was happening.
Right.
I'm transforming you so that we're equals now.
And so that it makes it okay.
And then, you know, the relationship would then change to when he broke up with these women, it was them.
It was their fault.
They were the hot mess.
Right.
But they didn't start off a hot mess. You know what I'm saying? So it's watching your vulnerability and making sure that if you're not in a good space, period, I always vouch now for women, and I try to advocate healing for this reason alone, because if you're not in a good space, it doesn't matter, younger, older, whatever the dynamic
not gonna work
is.
Out right.
If you're not good with you don't make clear boundaries and good choices.
No, not at all. I think that's why they tell most people in recovery or during, you know, like rehab and things like that, that they should wait at least a year. They have to focus on their healing. They have to deal with the trauma or whatever the root is to why they were abusing substances.
And probably for the same reason, because if you're...
People can be love addicts too.
Why? Well...
Love is an addiction.
Maybe I'm that.
Love is an addiction.
I love to love. But I do think that there is, you know, regardless of whether you're an older woman who likes to date younger men, or a younger girl or woman who likes to date older men, I still feel like it really has a lot to do with who you are as a human being, and you have to know where you're at and why you're doing what you're doing.
Right.
Because, you know, I see it, and then, you know, there's always misconceptions too. I've actually seen an amazing relationship where the girl was 19 years old and she met a man who was 60, and they are very much in love.
That's different.
Yeah, and they have been together for 10 years.
I'm sure they get judged a lot.
They've been together for 10 years.
Wow.
And they're a very healthy dynamic. They own a business together. They do everything together.
Nice.
And it can work, but it also, it absolutely is. But I think it also depends on where are you mentally and what are you trying to achieve out of this relationship. If you're not mentally ready or mature enough to handle somebody who's older, like in their, even if you're 20 and you're dating somebody 40, 50, 60, you're gonna start seeing people that know themselves very well, and they're not gonna typically just bend over and change because you want them to. So if
not happening.
Yeah. If you're looking for somebody who's still growing and wanting to change and grow with you, stay in your age group.
Right. I feel like growing with somebody is that you're capable at any age.
Sure.
But there's differences. I mean, we could be the same
know what
age.
I'm saying.
Yeah. We can even be the same age and have lived
evolve.
a lot more life. One of us lived a lot more life than the other one. If you're willing to work on it and grow together, or grow the certain parts of the whatever holes exist for both of you guys together, to fill those holes together, then I think that's important.
But I think too, what I mean by that is like routines and things have already been established.
Right.
So it's a lot less likely that you're going to break somebody's routine that they've been doing for 40, 50, 60 years.
Yeah.
If they have a pattern or a way of operating or communicating. I'll tell you this example. Okay. So as we kind of grew up, or I grew up especially, like 2001, I graduated from high school. Believe it or not, we still didn't have, everybody didn't have a cell phone just yet.
Yeah.
So it was just starting to become a thing.
We're not going to talk about when I graduated high school.
Yeah.
It wasn't 2001.
I mean, we had the internet, but it was like the annoying one where it connected to...
There were no cell phones when I graduated.
So it was just becoming something where you had cell phone, but over the time, we have adapted to the communication of, readily available texting. You text and you text me back.
Right.
If I, it's the weirdest thing to me is that nobody picks up the phone anymore. I can.
People don't call.
I do when I need an immediate reaction, and it still goes to voicemail. I'm like, just fucking answer.
Phone rings. I'm like, what do they want?
Why would you do that?
Why are they dialing?
Why would you call me?
Yeah.
Because it's what people did before.
Yeah.
But the funny thing is we over time have all adapted to this, but there are age groups that they still don't respond to text messages, or it's just not natural to them to have their phones on them all the time. And I see this with my mom.
Like our parents. I don't even know why anybody's parents have cell phones that they never pick up.
Yeah, my mom,
Mom.
Sitting right next to her. And
never. She's like, and every time I'm in her house, it's like, where's my phone? I don't know. Because you know.
But she got rid of her house phone. I'm like, well, what? You should know where your phone is at least, so that if there's an emergency. But I do see this in especially generations that like the technology advanced after they were like 40, 50, 60. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
These we know that there are exceptions.
There are.
But I do find that when I started dating somebody that was quite a bit older, it wasn't that it annoyed me so much as it was more me.
Okay, so it felt like he was kind of not responding on purpose, or they just don't put any value on the phone. Well, and we are so phone consumed.
And the thing is like what's interesting is like we talked about this in the last one, where I'm not really like a texter to begin with. I would much rather do the in-person, but there are people that if you text me, regardless of who you are, and based on the fact that I have the mobile hair business, I have to be pretty responsive to customers, but I'm not like, if you're not somebody I'm super close with and talk to every single day, I'm not going to give you like the same information. Right. It's just going to be kind of shorter messages. And I'm like, if you really want to know, call me.
Yeah.
I'd rather that conversation. But either way, no matter who you are, if you message me, I'm going to do my best to be like responsive. And if I can't talk, I'll be like, I'm with a client, whatever, but I don't like leave anybody hanging.
Right.
So that was like after, several months of getting to know somebody, I'm like, okay, because it was starting again, not looking at how we all have our own routines and we are set in our ways in certain things. I'm like, I would never treat somebody like that or make them feel like intentionally like, but then I realized, oh, this isn't
that's
me.
How you look at it.
That's how I was looking at it.
That's not how he looks at it.
But so the way that I approached the conversation was I put it in a way that was, this is how it makes me feel. And then the response was, oh, well, not even really, I'm not thinking about it.
Exactly.
It's not that I have other things that are more in his mind. I've got a job.
Right.
And we
forget. And the phone just does it. It doesn't.
Yeah. Like I have other things going on in my life, and it's not the thing that controls me. And I'm like, that is so interesting. And it's not what he said, but I'm saying like, I've heard that too. My cell phone is not the thing that controls me. I don't need instant responses. I don't need to know what you're doing or eating every step of the way. And that is how we've gotten.
Right.
Is like.
Right.
But so I will say also, if you're, we'll say 20 or 30, 40 dating somebody, and be prepared that, if you're used to certain behaviors that you see every day, and so like this is what we've created socially, you're gonna be in for a rude awakening.
Big time.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's a little, I think that part, the dynamics and the dichotomies between the age range is what makes it appealing to some people.
Yeah,
because
for sure.
When I have been approached by really young guys or people that are friends with my kids or went to school with my kids, I'm like, what are you doing? Like, you must have a mommy issue. And it's really like, no, it just looks like a lot of fun. And,
I think too,
they want something different and
I think
interesting.
I'm not trying to cut you off, I'm sorry. But I was going to say too, you also have a very youthful appearance. So
I've been told, but I mean, I don't feel.
I get that.
I mean, I definitely don't feel my age, but I don't feel that I look young enough for 21-year-olds to be hitting on you.
I don't know. Like, I feel like, so here's what
if I was your room mom in preschool, in kindergarten, and you still call me Miss Yasmin, no, don't buy me a drink. Don't do it.
I think though it's like, in a sense, it's a compliment, because I do get like you, I get like younger, 22, 23, 24. And honestly, here's the thing that I ask myself. If we can hold a conversation, I can kind of see, but I didn't resonate with people when I was in my 20s that were 20 at all. Like,
right.
I just did not relate very well to people my own age. And so here's the difference though, as I do think that technology has changed a lot of that. And I do think we're looking at people who are a little bit more advanced
right.
than they were when there wasn't all of the...
I don't think they're looking for relationships. I definitely think they're looking for the hookup.
Oh yeah, and that's the thing. I think that that's something when I talk to the guys that do hit on me, I'm like, here's the thing. And this is never, I think this again brings me back to why I was never attracted to 20s, even in my 20s,
right.
Was because, as I mentioned again in the last video, so check it out if you haven't seen it, but I was never, sex was not the driving force
right.
for me. Like, it's not that I'm not a sexual person. I absolutely rock that. But but it's like, that is not the thing that makes me go immediately, oh,
right.
I want to do that. It's like, I have to be somewhat intellectually turned on.
You want to be connected.
Yeah, and feel some sort of emotional connection, intellectual connection. And then from there, if you can get me here, you can get me, period. You know, so it's very... I don't know.
For me, it's varied. You know, sometimes things are pretty primal. Definitely, you look at people or you're attracted to people, and that's just physical. And then I've had very, very different types of relationships. Very, very different types of relationships. I haven't dated the same person every single time. It's been quite an adventure. Very, very fun. But there are people that you have strong emotional and spiritual connections to, and that's very different. And then there are people that you just have a lot of physical fun with.
Yeah, I mean, I've always wanted to experience that, like, natural desire to just, hey, we're all humans, but it's true. I've always wanted to. I just really, truly have never.
It's very primal.
Yeah, I have never met somebody
It's very hard to change it. Because once it's like that, then it's just like, that's it, you know.
And
there's
that's
nothing
all
else. There's
there
no
was there.
substance to it.
Yeah.
So then it's
cut short.
Exactly. And you lose interest. I mean.
Yeah, and I think
you
that
lose interest.
I don't know that has much to do with age.
If you don't have the here and the here, then I can't stick around.
Me neither. So. Absolutely not. And I think that it, like you said, it depends on what you're looking for too. So like, if your mind is, I have this innate need for a connection,
right,
you just kind of maybe I've turned it off, like that primal, like,
right,
rah. And it's like, believe me, I see the love movies and I'm like, yeah, I want to do that, but it's just I don't know. But I do think that no matter what, it doesn't matter. That primal could be 20, could be 60, it could be whatever. And I think also we should end the misconception that when you get older, that all older folks don't want to have sex. Are you kidding me? My
that's not true.
Thought process is that it actually increases. I've actually seen studies that support that.
Well, especially in women.
Yeah.
You know, things get better over time.
I think if you take care of yourself, especially these are reasons you should want to take care of yourself.
Right.
Is because if you are physically taking care of yourself, there's nothing preventing you from being able to have sex when you get older with younger people.
Good sex.
Absolutely. I will. Amen.
Yeah.
And I think it doesn't matter if it's male or female. And I think we're going to be attracted to what we're attracted to for the reasons that we're attracted to them. But that is one of the main reasons that, like, I even really enjoy the connection that I have now, is because that person, it's on all levels. Like, I'm stimulated by their brain, the way that that was the other thing. It's not just he's smart, but he's caring, and he has a lot of the other qualities. He's very attractive and attentive, those things. But I'm a racer, like meaning like my mind is very busy. And one of the things that I was talking about with the phone, when I've learned over the time that I've known him, when I'm sitting with people, I now put my phone away.
Right.
I give people the attention that they deserve.
Mm-hmm.
I've always been pretty good about that, but even especially in his company, my phone's away and gone, and I'm not focused on anybody. So, but him.
Right.
And
right.
I think that's like part of his like routine is after he gets out of work, he's got his thing where he's not on his phone.
Mm-hmm.
He's just like
decompressing.
Yeah. And a lot of us now decompress with
our phones.
Yeah. And so our brains are not actually ever getting that downtime.
We have games, we have social media, we have, and I mean, I've done that. I'm guilty
so
of doing
in a
that.
lot of ways, we say we're not changing, but we are adapting sometimes to other people's behaviors because it's helping yourself. So it's helped me to be more relaxed and be in the moment, those kind of things. So I appreciate actually some of the ways that he does things, his little set routines, and being set in his ways is actually not a bad thing because
it's calming and it's grounding. It sounds like
it's
grounding. Whereas like I tend to be one of those overphone users, and I put my phone down and focus on stuff and then bring it back. I'm also full of ideas, so I'm an excessive Googler. So when
I need to know why behind everything.
Don't even get me started. I don't want anybody to look through my Google browser history because it's ridiculous. As soon as I have an idea, I'm like, I wonder how that works, and it could be some ridiculous
rabbit
surgery.
Hole. It's the rabbit hole.
Or something very interesting that then will turn into something else that you use in your relationship, which can be kind of fun too. It's like, how does that exactly work? I heard about this.
Yeah.
Let's try it.
And
I'm a let's tryer. I'm definitely that kind of person. Like, let's try it. Which is probably why I started dating people that are younger, because younger people don't tell you no as often. You try to say, you try to say, hey, honey, let's try this. And my ex-husband would be like, hell no. Like, there's no way.
Oh, no. And I get told... I get told no.
End up in the ER.
I get told no all the time.
All's fair in love and war.
That was one thing I wasn't used to. Was, exactly what you just said. I was never really. I was always kind of, like I said, the decision maker, and always being the one who had to do most of.
Remember how Cosmo used to have that little weird sex guide thing they put out every year? I used to literally try to put that up and then let's work through all these things.
I use that. Now I have that scratch
off. Do they still do that?
Yeah, in a way, that's kind of what
a good little thing.
The kinky trivia is.
Yeah,
it's very similar to that, what you're talking about. It's a scratch off Kama Sutra.
Try it.
But what I'm saying though is like the same concept where if you're used to getting people who would just say yes to appease you, or you know what I mean, regardless of whether it's sexual or just activity wise.
Right.
Or they're tired and they'll still do something because they don't want to upset you, versus somebody who's like, I'm not doing that, or I have other things. You know what I mean? I was never. It was very rare to be told no.
I love to hear the word no.
You?
I love it.
I'm getting used to it.
It's like ha ha. So you think challenge accepted. I like hearing no because then it makes me more creative on how to.
Get what you do want.
Oh yeah. I just I'm competitive, so I look at it as a challenge. And I don't hear no. I mean, unless it's like outside of their moral compass, then I'm just like, you just don't know yet, or I haven't presented it the right way.
Oh yeah.
And I just try to find the way in. Sometimes
I get the feeling you're talking about sex.
I mean, whatever. It's, you don't know, don't knock it till you try it.
Oh yeah, for sure. So. And I think that too. I think that that's something like, let's look at it from two different dynamics too. If you're looking at, a 20-something-year-old man who's attracted to an older woman, it could be just that.
She's in Mrs. Robinson. They kind of want you to teach them stuff.
Yeah, well,
that's
maybe
a little boring too.
It can
it's
be,
like, oh, come on, kid.
Could you understand it? Like, if you're not getting...
I guess so, but it's just like, nobody feels like being everybody's teacher all the time. That's not that fun for me.
Oh yeah, but I think that if you're breaking down like the age is just a number, you could understand like it doesn't always have to do with a mom issue or whatever. It could be that they feel like they're trying to get experience, and maybe their experiences so far have been like,
I've actually heard that.
This can't be it.
During the course of conversation, it's like, hey, I'm only this age, but this is what I've had, and there's no way. I know that,
Yeah,
I know that there's something
willingness,
better out there. I'm
trying
like,
to
there
find
is,
people who
but
are-
I'm not the one for you.
Yeah.
Because it's like, yeah.
And it's the same way that a lot of times people think that if, you know, you're an older guy and a younger woman dynamic, that the woman is always like out to get the guy. Oh, he must have money,
Right.
or he has something that you want or need.
Society as a whole, as interesting as it is that we have there are so many people
Yeah.
that have not had similar age relationships, we still are way behind, and we still are across the board with the judgment on it. I mean,
we're
from
very
the beginning of time.
judgmental about a lot of things,
Right.
though. I mean,
Right.
whether it's relationships, whether it's sex, sexual identity. I mean, we've got an opinion for everything. And there's always, you know, we like to think that there's always more reason behind something other than maybe it's just this person.
Chemistry.
I'm attracted to them, and they meet some of the needs that I have. But, you know, to just assume that somebody is like out to get something from another person because of a gap in age.
Yeah.
And sometimes
make it all evil.
You got it all backwards. Like sometimes the chick's got the money.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you never
Seen
know.
that.
Mm-hmm.
Seen that.
Yeah.
So, you know.
And
nothing wrong with that either.
Yeah.
Sugar mama all day.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with well, and I mean, again, that could be you flip it, script it, whatever the word is. It's like you can have the younger with the older male, and female with older male, younger male with older female.
Right.
And obviously we know that there are other dynamics. We're just trying to keep it simple because we could break it down to all types of arrangements and
like
but as you see it, you know, however your relationship is and what it looks like to you, it just so happens that we are heterosexual, so but I say hetero-flexible. I don't necessarily know for sure,
because I never answer questions.
Yeah, I just don't like to label myself, period. You never know. But the point is like, however the dynamic is, it doesn't always mean it's because the other person has something to take from the other person. It could just simply be like our souls met and they match, and they can, like the yin to the yang. Like you're just filling in a piece that I maybe lack, and you make sense there, and maybe I fill in a piece that you are not as strong in, and together we create a whole, you know? I see that a lot too, and it just because it's one's, you know, there's a gap or age.
I think it's the easiest like scapegoat comment, or the easiest reason to rationalize why that exists. Oh, every time you see a really hot chick that's younger, and I see this often not often, but I see this sometimes
at the cigar
shop, or just anywhere in downtown in general. Somebody's like, he must have money.
What a nice
every
concept,
time.
though.
Or even, you know, when I've dated people that don't look physically like we match, people are like, there must be this. I can't even tell you the reasons, because I like who I like, and I don't have a type. So it has nothing to do with someone's stuff.
Yeah, and I can honestly say, and I think most of the people that know me personally can say, I have dated so many different types of people. There's no two look alike. There's no I guess I like beards. That's like the big thing.
Sometimes.
I just really like beards, but other than that, you know, they're different in so many different ways. They don't look the same. They don't act the same. They have different backgrounds, different family situations.
I have to say I like beards too.
I do.
Yeah.
They're fun to ride.
That they are. That they are.
We're bad.
Definitely that
So,
bad.
I don't know. I think that, you know, no matter what it is that we talk about, it's always going to come down to like breaking misconceptions and, you know, just allowing people to be people.
Right.
And enjoy life. And if you find somebody that makes you feel complete.
I think the biggest thing for human beings is to kind of take themselves out of the equation and to really look at something, or to ask the right questions as to why this person has this behavior or what this person's interests are. We have a tendency to always think that it's exactly how we feel about it, and that's completely inaccurate.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I personally, like I was saying, for my situation, I think I've really, like, in the time frame I've known him, I was in the process of growing anyways, but I feel like it's helped me look at my patterns differently, and what was I doing that made my relationships not work out, because I was always kind of, for one, I was never alone very long. So and then the relationships would typically move a little too fast, and then again I'm losing sight of, like, if I would get back into shape. This is the cycle. It's like, I got back into shape, started looking good. You're getting the dates again. But then you get somebody and then it moves too quickly. You lose complete sight of all the things that you were focused on. And this is just my habits, And for the first time, I can say that because the person isn't readily available to my needs and wanting to spend every waking moment.
You have to take a beat.
And it keeps me focused on myself and
your growth
and my growth, my personal growth, because the next relationship,
you're not falling into the quicksand.
Yes, and the next relationship
that sounds healthy
that I am in, when I say I don't want it to be a repeat. I truly do desire something that's long term, and that somebody that it doesn't have to be a marriage, but a companion, and somebody that is my equal, not the unbalanced and the toxicity. It's like taking your time to really decide if and know that person, and is this somebody who's, like you say, their values and their lifestyle and their routines, can I tolerate that for a longer period of time than say 2 years, It's like, I don't want to keep doing the repeat cycle over and over, and I think that it's teaching me to be patient and to look at life and myself differently, and be like, the right person is going to take time to make sure that you fit all of those things for them too, and not just, oh, you're beautiful and sexy and fun. And sex, as
that's all surface stuff.
And even the sex stuff, it goes we always do the honeymoon stuff, and then then the real stuff comes to surface.
Exactly.
So
you got to deal with the guts.
And I think and for my situation, could be true, could not be true, but I do think the age plays a factor in it, and that his focuses are more like, he's got his job that's important to him, his son is important to him, he's got kids too, he's got things that are more, those are the centers, and these things take my attention first, and then if I'm feeling up to it, that kind of thing. But then it's okay, because I'm still doing the mathematics stuff,
all the stuff that you need to grow yourself to the next level,
and staying focused and working towards my goals. And I think that when I was dating people that were closer to my age, I don't know, it could be, but
kind of got absorbed into them and or into each other. Versus, and
everybody loses sight of what they're about too.
Undoubtedly.
It's not always just like,
undoubtedly,
just me, but I definitely think I've seen that pattern, and this is the first time that no one's moved in, or their mom's not calling me every day.
Taking it slow.
Nice and slow.
Taking it easy.
They say the slow and steady wins the race. I don't always get my sayings right, but
rabbit in the hair. Or tortoise in the hair. Not the rabbit in the hair. Rabbit is a hair. Tortoise in the hair.
Whichever.
I think the one was slow, and then the rabbit veered off. And
I'm gonna play the tortoise role for the first time in my life. But again, I just, to finish off the thought here, I do think when it comes to any age gap, whether it's younger, older, younger, motives, why are we dating the people that we're dating, and where are we in our lives, and is it going, if you're doing it because you need, a daddy or a mommy, that may not be a healthy situation, because again, it's going to usually turn into something fairly toxic.
It's disingenuous. I just don't think that you can, I don't think it's ever safe to, when you're not in a good space,
and it never ends up well,
invite someone in at all. I don't think that it's good to use someone completely. I don't feel that it's good to completely leave yourself open and just want to be this sponge.
Mm-mm.
But you got to figure that out on your own.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what I can tell you is try it all. Play around a little bit. And
Absolutely. And
work it out. As I've gotten older, I know what definitely doesn't work for me, and I know what's sometimes a little fun. But I tend to be a little bit more self-conscious, very self-critical, and kind of self-aware about
and
these
definitely
things.
don't check off a box just because somebody
No, not a box, but definitely do all the stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, just because somebody is older or younger, you know, I'll give people a chance, you know, and a lot of times for me, it just really comes down to connection. And if I'm just like, I'm not feeling this vibe, we're all adults. That's what we were talking about earlier before we even started recording. We're adults. And I think the best thing you can do is just be genuine, and communication is what I'm all about anyways. So, you know, relay the information. Maybe you can still remain friends, but I don't say force anything.
No. Honesty,
communication.
Honesty. Be honest.
And if you happen to like older men or younger women liking older men, and the vice versa, older women liking younger men, no judgment here.
None.
So I think we've decided that it's just about what preference.
Yep.
It's all about. This has been Maddox. Hear me out. Age is just a number. Our objective is to create a safe space for people to talk about
sensuality, sexuality, spirituality, and social causes. If you want to be a guest speaker on the show, please drop a comment down below.
And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification button.
We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.